One of the most common things that we hear all the time is Columbus's growth is both unprecedented and unpredictable. You see, one day you've got a massive $30 billion project that's coming here, and the next, you don't know where it's going. One of the key things that you have to make sure that you understand, especially when moving to Columbus, Ohio as a whole, is this. There's so much growth happening here left and right. The number one, the traffic gets affected, which we'll talk about in a second. But number two, you just don't know where it's happening at the time. And it's not always sunshine and rainbows either. You see on my Instagram, which we'll put here, there's a ton of new growth opportunities happening. And because of that, for creation to exist, there must be destruction. Usually that's gonna come in the form of old, historic, charming buildings that people love. And well, locals, they're not happy about this whatsoever. From housing projects that nobody wants to other mixed-use luxury rental buildings that nobody can afford. There's so many things that are being built, but not all the things that are being built here are for the working class. Now, sure, we help clients left and right, and sometimes if they need an apartment that's $3,500 to $4,000 a month, we've got them taken care of. But at the same time, for most people, that's just kind of out of the range, and that's not really what they're looking for as a whole. A lot of the clients that are reaching out to us, they're looking at new construction and new build, either in places like Pataskala and Reynoldsburg, or maybe even Dublin. And if that's the case, one of the big things that we gotta understand is a lot of the land that's being taken out, well, it's gonna be farmland for farmers. Columbus is growing so fast, and while that sounds like a really good thing, it means that one historic neighborhood in one area, the next day it's going to be gentrified with bougie and boutique coffee shops that are $7 a pop, and outsiders that are living there that are driving up the cost of living. So take all these things into consideration. There's a lot of growth happening, but what kind of growth is happening? And is it for the people or is it for the companies? You see, a lot of the clients that are reaching out to us left and right, they're working in high-paying jobs. But at the same time, nobody wants to pay a little bit more than they have to. Usually one of the most frequent conversations that we have to have is about pricing. And it's not a fun conversation to have, but at the same time, it has to be realistic when people are looking at places. And let me tell you, Columbus in specific areas, maybe Dublin, New Albany, Powell, the Olentangy School District, well, they're definitely more expensive. But one of the facts that you gotta consider is there's a ton of hidden neighborhoods that you don't know about that are definitely on the cheaper end as a whole. But that's gonna come at a price. You see, everyone talks about Short North, German Village, but Columbus has a whole bunch of underrated neighborhoods that fly under the radar. Gehenna, the Hilltop, and parts of the South Side are still relatively underpriced and super undiscovered. If you're looking for a place to grow and you're looking at areas that really aren't known as well as other places, well, that's gonna be the place for you. And listen, if you're a first-time home buyer or you're a savvy investor, that's exactly where you're gonna look. But at the same time, this is gonna have a cost associated with it, and that's gonna be safety. And it's not me saying this. Neighborhood Scout, Realtor.com, and all of these other websites, they show that parts of Hilltop, parts of Linden, and a lot of these other locations as a whole, even though it costs less to live there, at the same time, the safety really isn't the best compared to these other locations.
New tonight, the Columbus City Attorney's Property Action Team boarded up a home in Linden.
So make sure you take all those things into consideration. How safe is it? How comfortable is it? And ultimately, is it a place that you actually feel like you can raise your kids, or just a place where you feel like you can call it home? You see, one of the craziest things about Columbus is the numbers, well, they can be a little misleading. You see, for a lot of our clients, the most important thing, obviously, is going to be safety, right? And when you take safety into consideration, there's going to be specific subsets of the neighborhoods and the communities that, well, just aren't as safe as others. Now, you see, I was talking to Jen and David a few months back, and they were thinking about making a move to Columbus. And here's what they said. They said, listen, I'm willing to pay as much as I have to pay. I want to know that my daughter, when she goes to school, she's going to be in a good school district, in a good area. And I said, listen, you're not the first person to actually say that. And at the same time, that we got to understand that all these things are going up in price point. People are willing to pay that pretty penny if it means they're going to be safe and they know they've got that peace of mind. Yeah, let me tell you, it's like 65 degrees here, and it finally feels like summer. It's not summer, it's March, but it feels so nice.
Now your life is like a movie, top down in the light. And you switching on your old friends, they just can't relax. Say that you can see right through me.
Places like Fringleton's and South Linden, they're definitely seeing a lot of growth and a lot of development projects, but at the same time, they definitely got crime rates as well. And let me tell you, every part in Columbus, obviously it's gonna have pockets of crime. Places like the Short North Art District, that's where a lot of the heroin is located. And these aren't things that people are gonna tell you, but I wanna make sure you know all this information. Before actually making that move to Columbus, look at the pockets of crime. Look at the areas that you feel the most safe in, and ultimately figure out where specifically you want to go. Is it the urban setting? Is it the suburban vibe? Is it a juxtaposition of both of those things? Figure those out and see what's tailored to you. And if you want our professional opinion and you want the professional opinion of our loan partners and our real estate partners, all of our information is in the description below. We'd love the opportunity to collaborate with you and just answer any questions that you have to ultimately make this move a smooth ride. You know what always sucks is when clients are coming here and I gotta kind of burst the bubble a little bit. They always think that Columbus is gonna be cheap cost of living, or the cost association is gonna be less than a lot of the places. And well, it's just not the case. You see, Henry came here because he had a job that was lined up at OSU. And we said, hey, listen, you can work here, you can live there, it's all good to go. He looked at his final mortgage payment and he was absolutely shocked. He's like, this is the actual amount? I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. Now, we had previously discussed that the rates were high. We discussed every single thing that was involved with it from PITI. But at the end of the day, when you see that paper in your hand, there's gonna be that level of fear. Now, Henry did end up buying that property with our real estate partner, and he loves the place, he loves his job, he loves everything. But the one thing that always makes my stomach kind of twist up is the fact that when people are seeing these mortgage payments and they are seeing these numbers, it's a little bit on the higher end. And it's not just for my clients making 75 to 80, it's also for my clients making $200,000 and more. You see, a lot of these properties, they've definitely gone up in property value, and especially with the property taxes as a whole, it's really not going to be a pretty picture. A lot of homes now have HOA, electrical, and on top of that, you got water, sewer, the whole shebang. You want to make sure that you're careful. Now, parts of Columbus, well, the water is taken care of, so you're good to go there. But other parts, they're not. New construction homes, they're going to be, well, much more expensive, up to $100,000 more than the homes a year before if those homes go on market. Now, while the cost of living is cheaper than the coastal cities, it's not as cheap as it used to be. Rent in central areas like Victorian Village and Italian Village can run up to as $1,800 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Even groceries and gas prices have been steadily climbing. The days of Columbus being an affordable city, well, they just might be numbered. If you want something a little bit cheaper, maybe look at Grove City, maybe look at Clintonsville. Maybe look at, further places outside of Columbus as a whole. A lot of the clients that are reaching out to us, they don't actually live in Columbus. They're living in suburban areas surrounding Columbus. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't want to be weird, I don't want to live in a suburb when I'm supposed to move to Columbus, don't think that at all. Everyone does that. This next one might get me killed. He's not gonna like this one for sure. A buddy of mine was out to drink a couple of nights ago. When he texted me, he said, yo, bro, can you pick me up? This was like 1 in the morning. Thankfully, I was playing League of Legends. Welcome. But he said, can you pick me up? And I was like, sure. Picked him up. We had a whole conversation. And he goes, dude, the public transportation here sucks. And I was like, bro, it's 1 a.m. What do you expect? But you know what? Talking back to that notion, our public transportation, albeit that definitely doesn't apply here, it's kind of a joke. Now, the Transit Authority, they are working on some things. And while Link US might be a fantastic innovative project, but as of right now, if you are living in Columbus, Columbus is a city where you need a car. Our public transportation, it's definitely not the best. And especially with the growing population holistically, we definitely need some kind of countermeasures to make sure that we can combat this. The last thing that we want is people to be gridlocked and not be able to see our beautiful city. And if more and more individuals are coming here left and right, and we don't have the public transportation to meet the needs of the people, oh, that's exactly what's going to happen. And especially in the winter months too, let me tell you, it's kind of unreliable. You see, you want to make sure that when you are moving to Columbus, you have a car. And a lot of you guys, especially as you are coming here, you got a car. Let's just say that, you're chilling. But I want to make sure that even on those nights out, and if anything were to happen, you have a secondary mechanism to actually get from point A to point B. Now, if it's the middle of the night, it's going to be an Uber or a designated driver. If it's sometime during the daytime, well, you want to make sure you have that taken care of as well. You see, Agni, which translates to fire in Hindi, which is ranked as one of the best restaurants in all of Columbus. And I had mentioned this on my Instagram page. People love Agni. And then people started reaching out to me talking about, hey, what are the restaurants like? What are the bars like in the whole shebang? Now, I'm not a food vlogger. I've never been a food vlogger. I don't claim to be a food vlogger like Bryce Hall.
Boxer. I'm not a fighter. I've never claimed to be a fighter. I'm gonna knock out Austin because I'm an actual fighter.
But at the same time, people were kind of genuinely mad at me when I told them that we had option A, B, and C, and they were looking for D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. That doesn't make sense. Guys, stop comparing us to New York City and California when it comes to food. We're not like Miami either. And I think a lot of people tend to misplace our specific proximity and designation purely because Columbus is so hip and doo-dah. You see, we definitely are growing, and our rhetoric of Midwestern, it's kind of questionable. but we are nothing, and I mean nothing, like places like Miami, even Texas, or parts of California. Now, we have a growing food scene for sure. And if you want some authentic Nepali food, you go to Reynoldsburg. That's what you do. But if you want to compare food scenes, we're not like those crazy places that you see in the coastal areas. If you want to get a culinary mecca, then you obviously have Chicago, which isn't too far away. But at the same time, you're coming to Columbus for the culture. You're coming to Columbus for the cheaper cost of living. I know we just, kind of an oxymoron to the fact that it's not cheap anymore, right? But you're not just coming here for the food. And I want to preface something by this statement too. We've got 3 Panda Expresses that are coming here, one in Dublin, one in New Albany, and one in South Columbus. I'm super excited about all 3 of these things. We have more restaurants coming, but as of right now, if you are thinking about living in Columbus, Ohio, or moving to Columbus, Ohio, the food scene really isn't cataclysmic like you think it should be. You see, there's a saying when it comes to food, it can be quick, it can be good, and it can be cheap. It can't be all 3. And that's the exact same thing when it comes to Columbus. You see, a lot of these homes, especially when our clients are looking at properties, the one thing is this: it can be cheap. Usually it's not going to be good. It can be good, but it's not going to be cheap. And if you're looking to build, it's not going to be fast. Especially in today's day and age, with every single thing that's happening in the United States economy, let me tell you like it is, it's going to be hard to get material. You see, right now, as of shooting this video, today is March 11th. And as we know it, inflation should be periodically down. The stock market has seen the worst day since 2020. Whoa. And a lot of people are completely uncertain about what specifically is going to happen. You see, I'm going to put a screenshot right here of what my clients are telling me and how scared they're feeling about the entire situation. And these 2 things, albeit you wouldn't think they go hand in hand, they do. You see, one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now is inflation and affordability. And if everything starts going down, the bond market actually starts going up, what's going to happen? Rates are going to go lower. So we're seeing a lot of things conject and a lot of things actually come together, but we don't know when that's going to be. A lot of homes, especially here in Columbus, well, they're going to go through some peeling of paint. They're going to need some working on the siding. Maybe a furnace is broke, the roof is 30 years old. Who knows? So make sure you have all those things taken into consideration. If you're looking for something that's pitch perfect, then moving to Columbus isn't going to be the right fit for you. One of the most common memes that you're going to see in the wintertime when living in Columbus is you're not depressed, you're just living in Ohio. And it kind of does make sense when you think about it. You see, seasonal affective disorder, it's a real thing, especially here, right? Our winters, they get gray. And we've had some pretty nice days recently. The sun's been shining, weather in the 60s, 50s. But for the most part, before this, Jon Snow winter was coming, well, that was a real deal. You see, in the summertime, it gets really in the 90s, 80s. But during the wintertime, it tends to get super brutally cold. Now, our winters haven't been that crazy bad, but there's definitely gonna be a few days throughout the wintertime where you're like, dang, maybe I should just pack my bags and go to Florida. And this is a huge thing that people just don't understand. You see, when you're moving to Columbus, you think it's gonna be this Midwestern state, and for the most part, it is. We've got our fair shares of tornadoes that are happening outside of the central Columbus area. But at the same time, we have our winters, we have our cold, and we have our snow. Make sure that you have all of these things in consideration even before you make that move. Take all of these factors and ultimately figure out if it's even the right place for you. You see, one big thing that you gotta understand is that Columbus, well, we're a sports town. And I keep regurgitating this back and forth over and over and over because it's true. You see, OSU games, they're fire. Columbus Crew, oh yeah, what's gonna happen? In fact, some parts of the World Cup are actually gonna happen here in 2026. So take all those things into consideration. If you're not a sports junkie, it's time to become one. And if you're really just not a fan of sports at all, well, Columbus might not be the place for you. We have OSU. It is a fancy, bougie, amazing college. But at the same time, we love our sports teams. We love watching those games. And well, we love the fact that we love it. And we're proud of this too. Make sure you take that into consideration. All of these things that I've told you, well, some people actually regret coming to Columbus, Ohio because of them. And the clients that are reaching out to us daily, well, one of the big things is, I didn't realize this, that, and the third. And we want to make sure that you have all those things in consideration. Now, I did an entire video on the pros and cons of actually living here in Columbus, Ohio. If you want to see that video, I'm going to put it right here. Watch it, and I'll see you soon. Peace.